Welcome to Waypoint. I'm Phil, and this is where we talk about travelogue, what we do when we're traveling, not financial advice, things that we do while we're on the travel adventure. And the third thing is sea theories to help us think a little bit better. So, as you can see right here in the background, this is part of the travelogue. We are in the second of the third portion of our travelogue series where we talk about the pandemic before, the pandemic during, and then the pandemic after. And we're at that second part right here. So I wanted to kind of just review what it was like going into it. So obviously, this is a pretty tranquil scene that we have going on. And this is one of the activities that I did in Ecuador because I got stuck there for 6 months last year, and part of it too was the restrictions were much stricter out here in Ecuador compared to other places, which they implemented it much earlier than a lot of places. But one of the things to point out was the curfew was actually 2 p.m. in the afternoon. So anything that you needed to do early in the morning. I think it was like from 7 in the morning until about noontime, and then you had to head back to wherever you were staying. So one of the activities, whether I was taking a break or just wanted to, get a little bit of breather from the small apartment there, this was one of the activities that you can do. And a lot of places have hammocks, and these are the types of hammocks that you actually do want to have. But it's one of those kind of relaxing things that you can do. Unfortunately, because this apartment is near the beach, there's actually a lot of mosquitoes. So if I spent any more than like 10 to 15 minutes outside, one of the issues that would occur would be I'd be attacked by a bunch of mosquitoes out there. So kind of something to keep in mind, but very tranquil scene. But as I'm going to show here is that there's kind of a large spectrum of what was going on during the lockdown. And this is just one of the scenes I think that was a great way to kind of introduce of what it was like to be out there. So why don't we just skip to the next part? So this is kind of towards the end of the pandemic, where Sophia and I actually had the chance to go eat at one of the restaurants that were open. So we went out there over the weekend, and this right here is actually I don't remember the name of the restaurant, but one of the great things about the dishes there is that it's super fresh. But on top of that, one of the ingredients that I really love that they pretty much include in most of the meals that they have here in Ecuador is plantains, and this is no different. This is actually a seafood casserole with all the different types of seafood, and they are very generous when it comes down to adding seafood ingredients. But on top of that, the mashed plantains as part of the casserole is absolutely amazing. So the combination of flavors, as well as kind of the with well plantains. If you have plantain chips, imagine that as a kind of a mashed kind of potato, and this is what you get. And on top of that, it's served in this kind of the stone hot pot, so you do have to be careful. But it's something that if you guys do go out there, if you guys do come out here to Ecuador in the area that I stay in quite often, is that we're definitely going to go to one of these restaurants that serve this. And on top of that, as you can see in the background, is actually the beach area. So it's right on the beach. So it's very appropriate. And this is not a sponsored video. I just happen to have Coca-Cola and Gutig. I can't even pronounce that, but that's the sparkling water that they have there. So again, not sponsored, but something to show what we have typically when we're going out. And this was one of the things that we had the opportunity to do was enjoy some of the restaurants, because most of them were actually closed. And even now, a number of restaurants have closed because of what happened last year. One of the things that we also did while we were out in Ecuador was actually just get the opportunity to enjoy the scenery when things were opened up. But on top of that, you really got to see some of the just the great beaches that they have there. But one of the things I also wanted to point out, so this is the beach out in Bayanita, where it's not really a cliff, kind of a cliff edge. This is really actually right near where that restaurant is. You can look over that edge over there, and you can see that people in the water are actually either boogie boarding and waiting for those waves to come up, or you can check out the seafood ships and oil rigs that are out there. So there's quite a few, um, and I want to say that this particular area, Santa Elena, has a oil terminal that they that they that they have both an oil terminal and a refinery right on the coastal area. And some of those ships that you see out in the background is actually is actually the the ships that grab some of the oil at the bottom of the ocean there. As I described in the previous video, one of the things that I do like doing while I'm out and about is taking shots of some of the interior design as well as some of the architectural work at some of these areas. And there's some very unique and kind of interesting layouts they have for commercial areas, especially in the malls. And one of the things that I actually do really enjoy quite a bit going to is actually the malls. And growing up, I was one of those people, that was just like, oh, the mall is just, I don't like going. But looking back now and realizing that it was a kind of a break from the day to day or getting out of the house where you could just go hang out and do different activities and maybe go to a restaurant and have some food and check out the different stores. And I didn't appreciate it as much as I do now. But just looking back and then seeing a lot of the really creative designs and things that you can do in uh, in a mall, is quite nice. And I think that's one of the main differences I think you're going to notice, right? If you're from the U.S. and then you go to these other countries like Ecuador, even in the Philippines, where the mall or the centro comercial is actually a place where people go to to kind of hang out and things like that. Part of it, it's very social, but on top of that, it's air conditioned and the scenery is really nice, very modern. And as I flip through some of these pictures, you're going to see some really creative concepts and stuff like that at these malls. This is in Guayaquil. This is one of the buildings out there that just looks really cool. It's, uh, this weird shape. I've actually never seen a building like that. Not incredibly tall, but again, one of the issues, right, is that everything has to be up to code. But because Ecuador is in an area where earthquakes do occur, the buildings are designed to be able to withstand some of those movements that occur during earthquakes and things like that. But again, just really unique design for these buildings. And I had to snap a shot while we were taking the taxi over to the mall area. And this is a very tellable picture here, but nice shot of the elevator in one of the malls that we went to. I can't even remember which one. And this was one of the stores which I thought was really incredibly designed. This clothing store, really hip, but really creative with their with just the look and feel. It's super modern, but it has that kind of wood always kind of gives that classic feel to it, as far as I'm concerned. So it does give like the straight edges and then that texture of the wood towards the ceiling area there. And I took another picture. Yeah, I took another picture of the outside window where they had these um, long strips of wood to create almost kind of like a pixelated look, which I thought was just really cool. And then this carving of their store's logo. Again, just another look of the interior of the mall area. Really, really beautiful. And actually, this picture almost kind of looks like a concept drawing that an architecture firm puts together. So in the previous concept of Waypoint, one of the things that we were looking that Cruz and I were looking to do was to open up a restaurant. So I made a particular mission to be able to look at different places, and it's something that still piques my interest as far as opening up a place. But I think one of the issues that we ran into was when the pandemic happened, it really made it kind of difficult to move forward with trying to put out a restaurant. But again, it's still of interest to me. I really Cruz has a lot of experience in the restaurant industry. I've worked in the restaurant industry, but mostly as a supplier of products and things like that. But being someone who's traveled quite a bit as a salesman in my earlier career, one of the things that I think that's advantageous about being a salesman is that you get to see a lot of different places, um, in a lot of different locations, even just in a localized setting where at one point I had the territory of the eastern side of Massachusetts. And just that alone gave me a perspective on all the different locations that carried certain products that I sold at the time. But this is one of the restaurants out in Ecuador where they were carving a turkey, and you can see they have it laid out as as deli meat. This particular place is a little bit more expensive, but as you can see, this was one of the concepts that actually Cruz and I discussed over a period of time. And if you watch some of the older videos, we talk about things like this, like preparing meats. Fresh meats was one of the concepts that we were talking about, and it was really trying to determine, what was going to be the best product for, for customers who were going to enjoy and things like that. And again, with Cruz having a lot of experience in the restaurant industry, there was a lot of different ideas we were tossing up. And one of the things that I would do when I was traveling out to these different places was just being keen on some of the some of the decor setup, as well as how some of the foods were prepared. And believe it or not, this was not like a cheap place. I've actually never eaten here because every time I go to the mall, there's always like some other restaurant that I end up going to eat. But I think looking back now and having this picture there, it puts me in a little bit more awareness that maybe I should try this particular place just to see what it's like. But again, they pre-roast the meats, and then it looks like it's served cold, and then you're able to order it as part of the sandwich where they have fresh baked breads at the top there. This is what was the name of this place? This is a cafe in Libertad, which is the next town over from Santa Elena, and small place, a small cafe, but the decor is, whoops, let's go back here. The decor itself is just kind of fascinating and unique, and I want to take a picture of it. As you can, if oh, actually, I'm blocking some of the pictures there. So I think one of the great things about like entrepreneurship, and it looked like there was a much younger group of people that opened up this particular restaurant cafe. But I think one of the things that sometimes gets dismissed is the creative side of entrepreneurship, where if you're an entrepreneur, you really get to demonstrate your creative ideas because the business is an extension of who you are creatively. And despite kind of the number crunching things like that from entrepreneurship, one of the other great aspects about it is the creative aspect. Not only in a manner of being persuasive, right? That's one of the aspects about it, persuasive to sell a product or a service. But the other aspect is another way to add value is extending out the creative ideas and manifesting into something that people can view and enjoy. So I had to snap a picture of this. So obviously these pictures too are happening in a lot of different days, and I kind of just summed everything together just to create a little bit of variety with the pictures. But again, this is just a unique place. It's very small, but they did a really good job of making it feel unique and also utilizing that smaller space to make it fun to eat. And on top of that, the coffee's really good and the pastries and things like that are absolutely really delicious there. Had to take a picture of this is the mall in Santa Elena, but I had to take a picture of the cinema there. Still very big, and I was actually glad to be able to have the opportunity to watch several movies at this particular theater out at the mall in Santa Elena. Excuse me, in Libertad in Santa Elena. Santa Elena is also the province, but also one of the cities out here in Santa Elena. So the Santa Elena province and their Santa Elena city, which is where we're staying at. But this mall is in Libertad, and yeah, during the weekends it's so packed. People go out to the movies and things like that. And what a great time to be able to talk about this type of thing because as we get into the later portion of the video, we're going to talk a little bit more about movies and things like that. But I wanted to show you guys that picture that theaters in other parts of the world, especially in places like Ecuador. It's a great pastime. It's something fun to do during the weekend where you can kind of take a break from staying at home or getting away from the heat and stuff like that and enjoy things on a big screen where the sound is just absolutely crazy and there's people all around. It's really awesome. It's fun. And it's something that me personally, I would recommend that you guys go. And I know that this weekend is the weekend, I guess, that AMC is actually going to be hosting the Poirier versus McGregor fight. So I think that's pretty cool. And it's something that I think it was something that I'd be doing myself if I was out in the U.S., but I'm not. So anyone who's out there who gets a chance to go out to the theaters to go check out that fight, go check it out. I'm gonna catch the highlight reels afterwards when that fight is done. Oh, and this is during the. I think this was like the second day that Sophia and I were preparing for the pandemic or the lockdowns, and I got into it early on. I got into it kind of several days in advance when there was still a lot of stuff, but I was grabbing all the vitamins. And one of the things that I did pick up quite a bit of is, yes, you guessed it, toilet paper. Because you know what? You need to clean you know what. So there was a scarcity of a lot of items that were out there. And this was just the first portion of the aftermath when the lockdown system occurred. And one of the things that I wanted to point out, and I think this has more to do with a culture aspect of hoarding and preparing for situations like these. But I believe that a lot of Americans who were paying attention to what was going on in the news immediately went to the supermarkets and picked up non-perishables and a bunch of items that they think that they would need in the event that they weren't able to go. I think that's just a cultural thing. But in very similar fashion, right? A lot of people were a little bit behind. I think Sophia and I were actually quite a bit ahead, but there were a lot of people days before the lockdowns were announced. So it's just kind of interesting to point this out that there was just absolute, and it was absolutely crazy too how many people were at the stores, the markets, and things like that. And this is proof. This is proof that I did pick up a ton of toilet paper, and this was only a portion of it. And at the time, I was doing a lot of standing up. Right now, I mostly have to sit down because I have problems with my Achilles and my knee has been bothering me. The fact of life when you're getting older and older. So I'm near my 40s, very near my 40s. So it's catching up to me. But every now and then I do get the opportunity to stand up. So when I was working on my computer, as you can see there, I didn't have other objects to lift up the desk. So in order to be able to stand up a portion of the day, and work on my laptop, I just stacked up toilet paper. And as you can see, I have the notebooks, and then I have the padding on the floor, which I have that as well for um, Sophia's nephew. One of the great aspects about the pandemic, so obviously Sophia and I spent a lot of time together, but another aspect of it during the moments when we were able to go out and travel a little bit and kind of enjoy the day, because like I said, the curfew was at 2 p.m. But before that, we'd go walking around, get odds and ends and things like that. But in the meantime, we'd also just kind of check out the neighborhood, see what it was like. And some houses just have huge gardens, and you can see that here. And I think that's one of the unique things about Ecuador, right? It's a very biodiverse country, but on top of that, I think a lot of people are very, very aware about the environmental aspect about living. So a lot of people have plants and dogs and a lot of different types of animals, and this is just a very significant example of you can't even see the house. That's how many it extends out to the sidewalk there that this person has. This was we didn't go we actually didn't spend time in this particular cafe because it was closed, but I snapped a picture of it because I wanted to be able to remember it, so the next time that we do go in this area, and it's not too far away from the center of Bayanita, but this is a cafe that's kind of hidden, kind of on some side street that I wanted to snap a picture of just in case we had the opportunity to go back there again. So maybe something that we'll do this weekend, since we're not going to be traveling all that much. This is a view of kind of near that cafe, and similar to the view that I showed earlier with the restaurant with the seafood casserole. This is just kind of a different part of that beach area where you can see the tide is pretty low, but you can see the ships in the background and things like that. This is actually the area where that restaurant is, and as you can see, I think one of the things that was pretty significant when the pandemic happened was that vegetation, as well as nature kind of just blossomed, right? Because nobody was out there, using the streets or anything like that. So flowers were in full bloom. Animals were out and about. Weeds and grass were just grew to immense size, and and it just looked absolutely beautiful. So I think that was one of the interesting things to enjoy while we were walking around doing odd, odd jobs and things like that, like picking up bread or more water, and kind of the ridiculous lines during the pandemic where we had to go there. So if you arrived actually at any point of the day when the store was open, it was just absolute craziness, and it just seemed kind of strange to me. I don't know about you, but it was kind of strange. So I saved a lot of these pictures of Sophia's cooking, and this was a lentil soup with those ribbon pasta, absolutely delicious. And one of the great advantages of spending a lot of time here in Ecuador, excuse me, as the dogs keep barking. It's what happens when you're recording out here. There's just everyone has like 3 or 4 dogs. But anyway, the lentil soup with a pasta. Sophia, one wonderful person, cooked a lot of the meals, and this was just one of the meals that she cooked on top of salchipapas, which is fries and hot dogs, and then rice. You gotta have stuff with rice. Nothing wrong with that. It's one of the great blessings in the world. This is absolutely amazing. So this is yuca. we have yuca and eggs and green onions. If you guys haven't had yuca, you guys are missing out. If you love plantains, I think you're gonna love yuca. It's very similar to a potato. It's the texture. It's softer than a potato, very starchy, but super good. One of the great breakfast meals that Sophia cooked often, which she doesn't cook too often now because I don't eat too much breakfast. Um, so when I finally had the chance to go to the store, I picked up this rack and I turned everything upside down so that I could turn it into a breathable stand up desk. So it worked out pretty well, but I couldn't spend too much time outside. Again, big problem was the mosquitoes, and still is. But out here in Santa Elena, it's not so bad because we're not near the beach. Close up, you might have seen a picture of this from previous videos and things like that. But this was a close up picture of the shrimp ceviche or a shrimp ceviche uh, Ecuadorian style, cooked or Ecuadorian style, which is absolutely amazing. I can't wait till until some of my family members come out here in Ecuador and try the shrimp ceviche because it's absolutely one of the best shrimp dishes I've ever had. And a lot of different places here, especially out on the coast, will cook it differently. But it's one of those things where it's if you're out on the coast, it's something that you have to have. Another great view of the beaches. Again, similar spot, just a different location. And that's it for photos. Now, because I love to travel and I've been traveling quite a bit, and you probably saw the tab out there, the tab up here. But I've entered into the the live anywhere on Airbnb for 1 year. I think as far as me as a candidate, me personally, I think I have a very good chance of winning because I've been doing this for a while. And what they do is they like having a large from the description, and you guys can check out the address there. But based on the description here, they're really looking for a variety of people to enter the sweepstakes, and basically it's like an all expense paid trip where you give feedback to Airbnb. I'm just kind of give you guys a generalized view of what it's about, and they do cover like if you're traveling with a number of people, maybe you have a significant other or your family, they're going to cover those people as well. There are restrictions, right? It's already over, so you can't enter the sweepstakes. However, they do cover family members or people traveling with you, but there are restrictions for certain countries that can enter into the sweepstakes. So the U.S. is one of them. So obviously, I entered when I saw the news. I think it was part of a recommendation on Google search or my Google Home that I always kind of check every now and then, at least once a day. But yeah, so I'm waiting on the results of that. Hopefully, I get the results soon. I think one of the drawbacks that will impede me from winning, and I'll say this out loud, is that I talk about a lot of controversial things. So if they do come across Waypoint or some of the topics I discussed, I think that might prevent progressing with this winning the sweepstakes. But otherwise, I think I'd be the perfect candidate for it. On top of that, I do provide reviews, and if you guys haven't checked out the Otavalo quick review, make sure to check that out. It's a short video; it's only like 5 minutes, but it gives you a really nice perspective on the types of places that Airbnb has. And just so happens that I stayed at an Airbnb when I went out to Otavalo with Sophia, which is right near Quito, but it's really great, really great. Really great Airbnb that I highly recommend that people should check out. Now, I do want to point this out as well. So, Sophia and I have been mostly here in Santa Elena, and this is obviously going to throw a little bit of a curveball if I do win. But I did discuss with Sophia about some travel plans that might come up in the near future. But I gave her a heads up on that. I didn't give her a heads up on this, so if she does find out about me entering the sweepstakes, well, I'll have to explain it to her when she gets home from work today. But I'm not a very religious person, and I'm gonna say this right up front, but just part of the reason why Sophia and I haven't been traveling so much on the weekends, or if we're only going to Guayaquil, is because her father has been in the hospital. So I want you guys to pray for her and her family, because he got really sick. Shortly thereafter, certain things occurred. I'm not going to go into detail about that, but it's one of those things where if you guys are watching this video, please put your hearts and your prayers for Sophia and her father and her family, because of kind of a tough situation that they're going on right now. So it's preventing us from traveling, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, because I get to work on some side projects and things like that. Get to spend a lot more time with her and her family. But just something just to point out. But again, this is going to be this Live Anywhere on Airbnb is going to. I already explained to Sophia about some travel plans, and this is just one of those things where I was really excited to enter the sweepstakes, but I didn't want to get too excited until I was able to show it on the video, and I'm kind of working on that, building my own anticipation for announcing these types of news. So, with that, let's get into not financial advice. So, we're going to go into, as I usually do, Yahoo Finance, right? And we're going to go to AMC. And I haven't checked what AMC is doing currently right now, but the market is looking pretty ugly. So we're just going to check AMC. And AMC is down 0.82. So it's within the same percent, roughly the same percentage points as the other stocks. And this segment is not going to be too long for the not financial advice, because I've been posting these other videos of the gamma squeeze, right? And it's a quick shots of Jubei, Jubei, we'll just call him Jubei the swordsman, and Gemma. And it's the anime snapshot is actually from Ninja Scroll, which is one of my favorite animes that's out there. And that scene, is an incredible fight scene. It's towards the end of the movie, but I titled the video "Waiting for the Gamma Squeeze," so Gamma Squeeze, and I had that thought in my head. And part of, if anyone has been following what's been going on, at least culturally, with AMC, then they would know, or if you're familiar with stock lingo and stuff like that and definitions, you would be familiar with the gamma squeeze and whatnot. But I really wanted to just excuse me, point out some of these other videos that I've been posting, that have to do with anime and video games, where I played through Ape Escape, which was a free game that was provided by Epic Games, and I never played it, but I downloaded because it just kind of fit the time frame to be able to play the game and then what's going on culturally. So if you guys are familiar, there's several really great YouTubers out there that are keeping people abreast about what's going on with the AMC stock. So Trace Trades, Matt Coors, the Mask Investor, Lou versus Wall Street was one of the other guys, and Finance News I think is the other one. That they post a lot of videos, and some of them Andrew Mo Money is another great one, and you know the whole situation with the apes is that the apes are being added as a different category. So there's the bears, there's the bulls, and there's the apes. So just out of strange coincidence, um, that I had this game that Epic Games provided for free called Ape Escape, and happened to be just a very stylized game. It feels more like a top-down shooter where you're controlling things with two joysticks. Not very. The controller layout is not very well laid out for the keyboard, but I think with two controllers and two joysticks, I think it'd be more sufficient to be able to play that game a lot more effectively. But yeah, so I wanted to point that I was having a little bit of fun of posting videos and then making commentary about it. And so those were more related to, if you guys are watching this, it's more related to what's going on with AMC, GameStop, Palantir, all those meme stocks that are kind of on the radar as far as you know that's caused a lot of attention because there could be a situation that at least for the top ones right now like GameStop and AMC that there could be a huge hedge fund squeeze, a short squeeze that will happen, and a gamma squeeze that happens before when orders get margin called. Now, here's a strange fact. I recently got debit called, similar to a margin call, where there was a a reorganization of one of the companies that I owned, and one of my accounts was actually didn't have enough funds because I typically don't have any actual cash in there. It's really just in securities, like stocks or whatever. And there was a reorg of the stock, and there was a mandatory fee for that reorganization, which I think was about $38, and I maybe had like $25 in that account. So it went below what the actual value was in my account. So there was a huge warning over the course of the July 4th weekend that I had to take care of. So luckily, I got that taken care of, and it should be fine. It should be fine. It wasn't anything that big. I just transferred money. I just put money here to here. Nothing crazy, but something that to keep in mind, right? So that you have to keep up with your account and the account activities and things like that. Otherwise, you could get more than a slap in the wrist, and it's more painful than that type of occurrence. So keep that in mind. But that was a quick update on on the not financial advice. So again, just some clarification. So right now, AMC from the last week has dropped quite a bit. Somewhere in the 10% range. So if you just look at the 5 day, I'm not going to go too deep. It's not a significant drop, and the volume itself it's much smaller than typical. So again, these might be some signs of the tides turning and shifting. It seems like they're not in the favor of the retail investors who are currently holding, but stay tuned for whatever occurs with this, because I think there's going to be some interesting things that happen. The unfortunate aspect is you have to keep paying attention to it, right? So anyone who's got skin in the game knows that at some point, right, it's a little. We just want the saga to end, but at the same time, a lot of people are not backing down, including myself. So jumping into C theories. Okay, so if everyone's been keeping up with what's going on with the news, the U.S. has been providing uh, the jab to a lot of different countries, yeah, gratis. So that's a great thing for people that are looking to get that. But on another note, why are we talking about this? Well, as if you guys can see at the top tabs over there, you can see that there's this news piece, and this was a news piece that Sophia actually sent me. So you can type this in for you can type this in for yourself if you want to read the article. It's in Spanish. But what I'm going to do, and so that you guys don't have to read it, I'm going to read to you the the uh, the translated version of this article. So so starting at 11:59 p.m., travelers entering Ecuador by air must meet the following requirements. They were approved 3 weeks ago, but from tonight they go into effect. They are the PCR test or the antigen test up to 72 hours after entering the country. The change we have established is that the vaccination certificate of the 2 doses or single dose vaccines must be 14 days before entering the country, affirmed Juan Zapata, president of the national COE. Why is this? Because the Ministry of Public Health, MSP, which I would assume translates to Ministerio Salud de Publico, through a report determined that this is the time it takes to generate immunity, he clarified. These requirements are approved for entry to mainland Ecuador as well as for the Galapagos Islands. Only children under the age of 2 are exempt. The restrictions for those who come from Brazil or who have made a stopover or transit in that country remain. Related notes. New requirements will apply in Ecuador for international arrival passengers. Those vaccinated will return to face work, but how does the pandemic evolve? Maximum number of face to face employees in public entities will be defined in July. They have to do a mandatory isolation for 10 days. If they are nationals or residents, they do it at home. If they are tourists, they can do it in a qualified hotels. But if they have 14-day vaccination card, they do not do isolation, reports Zapata. Regarding the Delta variant, there is still no specific decision. The subject is under analysis. There is a study being carried out by MSP, the Ministerio Salud de Publico, and I understand that in the next few hours it will be presented to the national COE, said Zapata. The requirements to enter Ecuador will be requested at the airports of origin. It must be remembered that the land borders remain closed and passage is only allowed in case of emergency. So take it for what it is. There's so this was posted on June 30th, so this was 7 days ago. Um, it's a moving target. I think we're in that situation right now that we that we do have to prepare for changes happening rapidly, and it's not something that we're not unaware of. It's just you know these things are happening so fast, and then you kind of just have to make decisions on the fly. And in certain instances, it might not be favorable for people traveling. But I think one of the most important things that we have to keep in mind is that countries are doing their best to make sure that people are healthy and safe, in their countries. And this is something that I like keeping up with. I know it sounds, a little bit redundant, and it might be good to put it in the travel log, but there are some certain aspects about it too that I think we want to dig a little bit deeper on. And again, it's something that I have to keep up with, especially since I go to Ecuador very frequently. But on top of that, I do plan on going to other places outside of the U.S. And in the event that travel restrictions across the board start to change in these different areas, we do want to stay ahead of any of these things that happen, because we could be in a situation where any of us, including myself, you could get stuck. So there are um, there are things that we have to prepare for, and there's a number of people out there that might not have the same type of flexibility that enables them to stay for a longer period of time. However, with that being said, we still one of the things that this video, I think, that I believe helps people, is that because I'm talking about these subjects in real time, and I talk about you know these places and what the experiences are and what's happening in the news while we're in these places. I think this will help people prepare a lot easier to make sure that that you can travel safely. But in the event that things just change very dramatically, like what happened during the pandemic last year, where I had to make that decision. There was a lot decision to either leave or stay, but there was because they were closing the borders from province to province, it added another layer of obstacles that were unknown obstacles that I would have to need to deal with um, if I happen to not get to the airport in time. And that's on top of if I arrive at the airport, well, what do I do when I arrive there and I can't fly out? So there were a lot of situations that really, like I said, I mean, no one's ever experienced before, and it was kind of a very nerve wracking process. But for me, going through it has me in a kind of a defensive offense, I guess you could say, when I'm encountering these types of situations. And this is one of the ways that we stay ahead of what goes on, because we could be in that situation where you know I could be in a completely different country, and not have the familiarity that I have right now in Ecuador, where I know several people here. Sophia and I stay together. So not only, even though I do speak Spanish, not very well, by the way, but Sophia does help out quite a bit, helping with communicating with people, especially since my Spanish is still very bad. It's to some degree understandable. I would admit that, but at the same time, Sophia also helps out with relaying some of the information that I talk about that might otherwise have been misinterpreted, and even then, she too and I misinterpret each other every now and then. So, but yeah, so this is the situation that's happening right now. And for anyone who has already gotten the jab, well, you guys are free and clear. No issues there. For those who haven't, well, um, you got to think about what the possibilities are. That goes into something like this, and again, so the restrictions themselves, they're not so heavy, but with the jab, you need 14 days in advance. So there's there's a lot of things to think about when considering that. So the next part, and it goes into this same concept, is so there's been a lot of videos, at least on TikTok, showing people with magnets and stuff like that being connected. And this is actually going to be the last topic about the seed theories that we're going to go through. And the search engine that we're going to use is DuckDuckGo. And what we're going to do is we're going to do a quick search on beer bug, and we're just, as you can see, I already typed it. But let's see what we come up with. So I'm not finding anything in particular, uh, and it's one of those things where I think everyone can make their own decisions about it. But I've seen a few things that showed that there's magnetic objects that stick to somebody's arm where they got the needles, placed in there. And well, I guess if it doesn't show up on DuckDuckGo, I guess that part's got to be true, right? That's not real. But yeah, I think there's a lot of things to think about when traveling, and everyone's got to make their own decision about what they think is going to be safe. And I think the part I believe is going to be the most important aspect is to do your research and come up with a solution for yourself and your family, things like that. If you have a family, and you guys come up with the right solution. But I just wanted to go through a quick scenario that's going on right now, and something that, like I said, it's one of those situations where I have to think a little bit more about what I'm going to do, especially when I get back in the U.S. And as time transpires, what types of things should I and should we anticipate when we are traveling? And that will do it for the show. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to send me a message on the chat and things like that. But otherwise, enjoy the rest of the day or the evening. Be safe, happy. I hope everyone is doing great, and make sure to like and subscribe. All those you know YouTube algorithm things that helps the channel out. And I'll talk to you guys soon. But tune in next week as we complete the three-part series in reviewing the before, the during, and the after of the pandemic out here in Ecuador that I experienced. And then obviously we're going to talk a lot more about not financial advice and more seed theories that can help us think a little bit more clear about better decision making. Thank you guys very much, and have a wonderful day.